Madam President, today we have only 39 days until September 30th, which is the expiration of the current authorization for the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And I'm committed more than ever to get LWCF authorization across the finish line. You know, I've been waiting to get a vote for the entire 115th Congress. I've been told to wait, and I was patient for a while. Last time I was on the floor, I offered it as an amendment to the last appropriations bill, knowing that it was not germane, but knowing that the issue needed to be brought to the forefront of the United States Senate because it is at the forefront of the American people. Well, I'll reiterate again, I can't wait any longer. In 2015, it took the expiration of the Land and Water Conservation Fund before Congress got serious about reauthorizing the program and allowing these vital conservation efforts to continue. I'm putting this body on notice once again. I'll not allow it to expire again. Several pieces of legislation have come before this body over the previous months, and yet again I'm being told by my colleagues, many of whom profess, by the way, to be supportive of this legislation, that we should wait just a little bit longer, that I can't even receive a vote on a matter until then. I've offered my colleagues a very simple proposition. Give me one vote, reauthorizing the Land and Water Conservation Fund at a 60-vote threshold. I'm not asking for us to forego the requirements for a 60-vote threshold, and I've asked for an amendment for months on any legislation coming through the Senate and have repeatedly been told no. So I'm here offering a somewhat different solution. The bill that I will ask unanimous consent on shortly is different in that the language hasn't been offered as a standalone bill, but it is actually language that has been passed by the United States Senate, this chamber, by a vote of 85 to 12. It's a bipartisan bill, or bipartisan language, that was part of the energy package that Chairman Murkowski negotiated with the ranking member. It includes reforms that both sides would like to see. There's one change that I'm offering today, and that's the ability for LWCF to be reviewed every 3 years for all future Congresses if they believe it's warranted. And it does so by including a joint resolution of disapproval every 3 years in perpetuity, meaning an individual from this body can come to the floor and with the appropriate votes for disapproval can eliminate the automatic reauthorization. This is a permanent authorization of LWCF, but every 3 years the Senate as a body can vote to disapprove the automatic reauthorization, and in fact, they would essentially bring an end to the program. Now, the provision gives Congress a chance to take another look at the program every couple of years, which seems to be in line with what a number of my colleagues currently want, given the short period options that I've been offered in the past few years. Now, Madam President, let me talk about the reason that this is permanent. Because when LWCF was created in the 1960s, its original authorization was for 25 years. And when it came up for reauthorization in 1989, we reauthorized it for another 25 years. It wasn't until 3 years ago, where it was up for reauthorization, that all of a sudden the Senate, in their infinite wisdom, decided, well, we're only going to do this in 3-year increments. And even as late as a month ago, we were offered a 1-year reauthorization. Now, how does a 1-year reauthorization say to the conservation community that plans for generations what programs they will have to work with? It was only in 2015, after LWCF expired, I might add, that Congress chose that short-term extension. I believe that to embrace what the creators of this program believed, we've got to get back to a longer-term reauthorization, and I would propounding this, that be permanent with a 3-year review and the ability to pass a disapproval of that authorization. It's a responsible proposal. This chamber agreed to pass these reforms on a bipartisan basis, and I'm offering even more opportunity to appeal to the concerns of my colleagues than we have ever done. I would urge my colleagues to allow me to get this bipartisan language passed so that we can concentrate on other pressing matters. Now, Madam President, I think it's important. I can never miss an opportunity to talk about what LWCF is. It's a popular and successful bipartisan program, and there is a House companion bill. It has 233 co-sponsors. Let me say that again. It has 233 co-sponsors. LWCF is a dedicated means for the conservation and protection of America's irreplaceable natural, historic, and cultural and outdoor landmarks. Over its 50-plus years in history, the Land and Water Conservation Fund has conserved iconic landscapes in every state and is responsible for more than 42,000 state and local outdoor recreation projects. It is far and away the nation's most important conservation program. LWCF has protected places like the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, Cape Lookout National Seashores, the Blue Ridge Parkway, through the federal programs, and places like Whitehurst Forest, Camden Community Park, and 4 Mile Creek Greenway in Mecklenburg County through state and local programs. LWCF is already paid for using a small percentage of receipts off of the oil drilling revenues. So let me put that in layman's terms that every member of Congress can understand. It requires no taxpayer money. We use a percentage of receipts that we collect off of exploration, and it funds the Land and Water Conservation Trust. I might add that this doesn't bypass appropriators. And I remind everybody, I'm not here amending an appropriations bill. This requires appropriators on an annual basis to appropriate money. The pot, though, is accrued based upon the royalties off of exploration. So not a dime of taxpayer money. I might also add that the current account balance for the Land and Water Conservation Fund is $21 billion. And this year, the Congress of the United States will appropriate roughly $450-some million. So if we were to appropriate the same thing and never increase the size of the trust fund, this program would run well over 30 years on the existing money that's in the fund. That's assuming that there was no increase in the fund's balance because of money it might make off of it. LWCF helps make access for outdoorsmen easy by purchasing in holdings and edge holdings. With changing land use and ownership patterns, historic recreational access can be cut off or blocked in many areas. And oftentimes, vast expanses of public lands are separated from roads and towns by narrow strips that are privately held, necessitating a long drive to access hunting and fishing only a few miles away. America's growing population needs more outdoor recreation and access opportunities, not fewer. If we want our children and our grandchildren to enjoy the same hunting, fishing, camping, hiking, and paddling opportunities we enjoy today, protection of habitat and watersheds must be kept with the growing population and the development pressures. This program is widely supported by outdoor recreation industry, conservationists, hunters, anglers, bird watchers, and all who appreciate access to America's unparalleled public lands assets. The U.S. outdoor recreation economy generates $887 billion in consumer spending and $65 billion in tax revenue. North Carolina has received approximately $246.7 million in LWCF funding over the past 5 decades. Now, Madam President, this just happens to be a newsletter that I got in the mail over the weekend from the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation. And I just want to highlight a few things in this because this is all about the Parkway. And the first one is a community of stewards. Thank you to Project Parkway volunteers, highlighting an effort where 200 volunteers devoted their time for cleanup projects along the Blue Ridge Parkway. High Pass Boogie Riders. This spring, High Pass Boogie Riders motorcycle event was a hit. Riders enjoyed a weekend of fun and raised $13,000 for the Parkway. Happy Camper Memories. Here's a story of an individual who, as a child, actually spent her summers camping in the Blue Ridge Parkway. And this is her story of what it meant to her. You talk about a generational impact, it's right there. Overlooks get a clearer perspective. Some of my colleagues say, you know, this empowers Park Service or somebody and they limit access. I just talked about we're using this to expand access. But here's one where the Park Service took on the opportunity with private funding to begin to clear the view over overlooks so that people who ride down the Blue Ridge Parkway can stop at the overlook and actually see the beautiful land that's out there where it had been encroached by scrub trees. Something some of my colleagues would never think that the Park Service would go in and actually cut down something. And not only did they do it, they did it with money that was donated to them by people who use the park. A fresh look at Flat Top. Flat Top just happens to be a property that was when the Parkway was created in the 1950s under the Jobs program. This was a residence that was absorbed into the park property, and now 100 years, hopefully the restoration on this will let this property last for another 100 years. All driven with volunteer dollars, not with appropriations. And we know the backlog we've got with maintenance needs on our parks. And the last one I'll highlight is the Farm Aid. Repairs to historical humpback rocks are underway. And, you know, I'll just read the last sentence of the paragraph. This is a much needed transformation and a great example of your donations at work. You see, this isn't something that we're trying to pull the wool over the American people. This is we're actually highlighting the things that are great, that we've preserved. And we've got an opportunity to use the Land and Water Conservation Fund with zero taxpayer dollars to leverage these private donations for projects like Farm Aid. The last one's Leave Your Mark on the Mountains. Where there's a will, there's a way. And it basically says, give to the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation. You know, I say to my colleagues, this makes such common sense to me. I mean, across this country, we've got individual Americans who give of their own money, not just to protect, but to maintain these valuable pieces of land. And here we've got an opportunity to use money that was designated over 50 years ago, authorized, that we accumulate in a pot, and we use that to leverage the private donations. Maybe this is a model for us to look at as to how we do park maintenance, where we might be able to leverage more private sector dollars to help us with park maintenance. Because this, in essence, is maintenance, but it's preservation of national treasures. North Carolina, the program has been so successful that just a decade after its original enactment, Congress in 1977 decided to triple its authorization level to $900 million, the level it remains at today. Now, let me just point out for my colleagues, it's authorized to be appropriated $900 million a year. It has $21 billion in its fund, and this year we will appropriate about $455. I'm not here to fight an appropriations battle. I'll save that for when we've got permanent reauthorization, because I think it's high on the passion list of many members. As of March 30th, about $21.5 billion is in the LWCF fund. From 1965 through 2018, about $39.8 billion was created or was credited to LWCF. Less than half that amount, 18.4, has been appropriated. I want every member to understand what I'm asking today. I'm going to ask unanimous consent that the Senate take up a bill with an hour debate and an up or down vote that does this. It permanently authorizes the Land and Water Conservation Fund. It does not appropriate. It still leaves up to appropriators the annual amount that's appropriated. The language of this bill is a negotiated bipartisan reform package led by the chairman of the Energy Committee. And most importantly, to those who have been uncomfortable with the extension of reauthorization in the past, every 3 years, the Congress is given the ability to pass a disapproval for reauthorization. And if they collect those votes, the program is not authorized. I'm not sure that we've left any concerns that have been raised over the past year and a half out of the equation in this bill. I want to thank the chairman of the Energy Committee for her diligent work at negotiating the bipartisan language, her willingness to be supportive of the reauthorization. I firmly believe that she will have to object because in some cases that's your job when you chair a committee. But before I make my unanimous consent request, I want to make a promise to all my members. If I've got to come down here and do this morning and afternoon, day after day after day, I'll do it. I've got enough iterations of this bill that I can accommodate anybody's concerns that they have and find a way to get permanent authorization not because I want it. It's because the American people want it. It's because the next generation deserves for us to do this. And for some unknown reason, a small number of people won't even allow a vote to happen. So at this time, I would ask unanimous consent that at a time to be determined by the majority leader in consultation with the Democratic leader in the Senate proceed to the consideration of my bill, which is at the desk in relation to LWCF, and that there be 1 hour of debate and that the Senate vote on passage with no intervening action or debate.
Is there objection?
Madam President.
Senator from Alaska.
Madam President, reserving the right to object, I do stand reluctantly and in the unenviable position, as my friend from North Carolina has noted, as the chairman of the authorizing committee, the Energy Committee. I will be objecting at this time, but I want